Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be taking a look into the severe weather chances over the next couple of days across parts of the Ohio Valley and Midwest here. These are definitely areas we need to monitor here pretty closely over the next couple of days. I also got a little update for the tropics on Invest 92L. We'll be taking a look into my tropical system impact index for towards the end of this video today. So let's going to get started with the severe weather side of things here and the SPC outlook. So this is for the rest of today. We got a margin of risk across parts of southern Minnesota, parts of western Wisconsin, southeastern South Dakota, far northeastern Nebraska, most of Iowa, and northern Missouri. We also got another margin of risk for pretty much along the coast, east coast of parts of South Carolina, Georgia, into parts of northeastern Florida as well. Primary threats for today, we're not really expecting any tornado development today. However, damaging winds and hail will be your primary threats for today in both of those zones. This one up here, that might actually be associated with a weak cluster of thunderstorms that might move to the south here, and that might affect the severe weather for tomorrow. Which, if we move on to tomorrow, we got a slight risk for severe weather across parts of northeastern and northern Iowa, far southeastern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, and northwestern Illinois. Been a while since some of those areas had severe weather chance. Tornado threat's looking to be a pretty low end threat at 2%. However, the environment is favorable for strong tornadoes. But there's not going to be any discrete cells out there. Not very much in the way of discrete cells. However, damage winds will definitely be there. That's going to be your pretty much your primary threat. There'll also be the chance for some hail as well. There might be a chance some hail might be very large as well. Indian severe weather risk moves into parts of the Ohio Valley on day 3. So you got slackers for severe weather across northwestern West Virginia, western Pennsylvania, all of Ohio, most of Indiana, northern Kentucky, southeastern Michigan, and east central Illinois. And really the primary threat is going to be damaging winds on this day here. But these are days to watch here, and there might be another chance of severe weather the day after this. So let's check out the high-risk dam on this 12Z run. And this is what I'm talking about here. This little cluster of thunderstorms here might affect the next day here. And one way to find that out is how the environment goes tomorrow morning. You can see how that pushes to the south here. Now we're kind of getting into the morning hours. That's actually kind of out of here. So that might actually give plenty of time for the environment to recover out here. And it's going to recover in a big way. And as we continue on, there's not going to be many storms out there towards mid to late afternoon because there's going to be a cap in place. There's going to be plenty of sign in as well. And then as you get to the evening hours, that cap starts to break. Bam. Here you go. Uh, Thursday night here, or Thursday evening. You got thunderstorms blowing up, and there might be a chance for some hail in those storms, but later on, these here will be continuing into a squall line here, and there's another little cluster further to the southeast. And this might become a pretty significant mesoscale convective system, or the MCS. Now, I think these storms are going to last longer than what the high-risk dam is predicting because I believe there's still plenty of cape out ahead of this thing, which is what some meteorologists were talking about today, that the models might be killing these storms off too early. And these storms might actually continue a little bit further to a little bit more to Indiana, Illinois, maybe into parts of Ohio, possibly as well. And then you get to the next day, bam, new storms form along those boundaries there across parts of Indiana and Ohio. And there is going to be some strong and severe storms off the screen here as well to parts of Pennsylvania and New York State. And those continue to move to the southeast, and eventually these may get to parts of Kentucky and West Virginia later that night. And so that's the high-risk NAM here. Let's check out the let's check out the superset composite. This is going to be interesting. While that loads, let's check out the H-R model. This is a brand new run, 18Z, and I think this is going to be a little bit underkill with this development. So here's later tonight. Shows a little cluster of thunderstorms developing in eastern Iowa that may continue to the south for a while. Man, that continues on for a long time. Actually, it continues pretty far to the southeast. And then later in the afternoon, bam, you get a big old storm into parts of central Iowa that continues to move to the southeast. So with some of those boundaries in place, you could get more storms to form. And this is not really showing much away at big storms, but it does show new development behind that later on, and it also dies out. And then new storms may try to form the next day into parts of the Ohio Valley. And we'll set that up to a superset composite. And here's the NAM. And you can see here it shows that MCS there later today, early tomorrow morning. That passes through, the atmosphere recovers, and then big storms start to form. It's actually got big storms in southern Wisconsin. And it's a little farther north with that large MCS. I think the Hardest Dam may has a little better handle on it, but we'll see. And then Friday, you got a pretty good line of storms that do form into parts of Ohio and Indiana, and eventually it's up into parts of the Pennsylvania and New York State. And it looks like new storms may form later that night into parts of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. And then watch the next day here on Saturday to see anything forms in there. And we'll set that up to the superset composite as well. Alright, let's go back to the HiRes NAM here, and you can see here the superset composite numbers are pretty darn high later today. Check those numbers out. A 49. I haven't seen a number that high in a long time. I think I've never seen a number that high this year. But here's the good news. You got a cap right here. So no storms can form in that environment, which is the good part about this. The cap is of how to indicate here. You can see this white dotted line here, and then you got this red line here. When they cross each other, thunderstorms can't form past that. So, but if the cap wasn't there, there could be some big time storms out there later today. But good news is there's gonna be a cap in place. But check out the next day here, and oh boy, check out these numbers here, much higher. Not much higher, but some very high numbers. A 57 in southeastern Iowa. And there's also good news here. There's also a cap here, but not as strong. Keep in mind that it is not as strong here. But you also notice here, check out this photograph here. It's got a pretty large curve to it. That actually be favorable for the chance for some strong tornadoes. And there's a lot of CAPE out there. You can see almost 5,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE at the surface. That's a lot. This is also a pretty favorable sounding here for damaging winds or a mesoscale convective system. You got your dew point and temperature line that's spread apart at the surface. Your downdraft CAPE is at 1600. Now, low level lap rates is pretty weak, but I might have to deal with the sign in and the cap there. But if it's not there, I think those numbers would be higher. But your mid-level lap rates are pretty high for this time of year, and 8.5, pretty impressive numbers there. So it's a favorable environment pretty much for strong tornadoes, but you still have that cap there, so that's going to prevent discrete storms to form. And then you got the mesoscale convective system that forms, and then you move on to the next day, and you got some pretty good numbers. I mean, I consider these high numbers. I mean, when you get into the 20s, those are some high numbers. But what you're seeing back there in Iowa, a 58, that's pretty impressive numbers. So let's check this out here, and you can see here there's actually no cap in place. You also got to use a hodograph as well, so any discrete cells that form out ahead of the squall line may actually have a chance to produce maybe a couple tornadoes. You also notice here, once again, there's plenty of CAPE, But it's also a pretty favorable environment here for some damaging winds. And you see your dew point temperature line spread apart the surface, 1,000 downdraft cape. You also got a decently strong low level lap rates as well. So this is pretty good to go for damaging winds, but also maybe a chance for some isolated tornadoes along that squall line there. If any discrete cells develops out ahead of it, we may have some problems with that. But this is a pretty good sounding for severe weather, nevertheless. Here, not really that favorable for hail. You do have a little bit of elevated mix layer going on there in the mid levels. But other than that, this is favorable environment for damaging winds and maybe for a few tornadoes. And there's even some high numbers back across parts of Illinois. And check those numbers out in parts of northern Kansas. There's probably a cap out there, but we'll double check that real quick. Just for curiosity. Actually, there's not really a cap there. So we may need to watch that area as well. And whoa. Oh man. Check out the surface there. Winds are all over the place of the surface. That's insane. Uh, Definitely have some big time tornadoes possibly. If this sound is correct. I mean, gosh, Lee, that's insane. Yeah, that's a big time supercells as well. And we'll check this out real quick in Severn, Illinois. And this will also be a fair. Well, there's a lot of cape though. 5,700 cape. That's a lot. Dew point number of 80. That's very humid. Yeah, it looks like this will be a favorable environment here for damaging winds and maybe an isolated tornado as well with that sounding as well. But let's check out that surface space sign in real quick. Well, actually, we'll let that load there. I forgot what I was doing. Let's check out the Herb model, and you can see here pretty similar number. Well, actually, it's much higher. Did I just saw a 60? Oh yeah, 62. Oh man, that's insane. But hey, the good news is there's a cap. But man, that is some pretty impressive numbers out there. Let me tell you, those are some very impressive numbers. Let's check out the next day here. Let's see how high these numbers go. And it doesn't look to be that high, although you got a big sliver back here. Not a big sliver, but a small one in southwestern Iowa. And there's a little bit of a weak cap here. A little bit of a weak cap here. We're going to see if storms can blow through that cap. But man, check out the surface. The winds are going all over the place. Down to the surface, you got a pretty large hodograph. 0.8 cape. This is a favorable environment here. Maybe even some hail as well, if that's going to be correct. But definitely something that needs to be monitored there as well. And you move on to the next day here. You got pretty decent numbers for Friday out across parts of Ohio here. And there's actually a little bit of cap as well right in here. So stores may have a tough time developing for that cap. But all the other greens are placed for damage to winds, maybe in some hail. There's actually pretty decent elevated mix layer there, so maybe some hail is possible. Which those analogs actually matches a lot of analogs out there for significant hail too, which is interesting. So that might be favorable for all hazards. And then you go back to parts of Nebraska. So with some decently high numbers out there as well. Alright, let's look at the original NAM. And these numbers won't be as high since it's not as high a resolution model. You got as high as the 38. Wow. Okay. But still, a cap there. I think everybody knows that now. You got a cap there in place, so it's going to prevent storms from developing. And then you move on to Thursday. Highs of 43 in that triple point where those three states meet. Oof. Uh, Pretty decent cap right there. Definitely a stronger cap than what the other malls had it. That might slowly weaken when you get into the overnight hours, but that is a pretty decently strong cap there. But other than that, all the other greens are in place for damage winds and tornadoes despite having that cap there. Then you move on to the next day here. I mean, check out some of these numbers. Highs of 24 in parts of Indiana and Ohio. It even goes all the way back into parts of the Central Plains. And wow, talking about a lot of cape. 6,500. I think that's going to be an overkill right there with the cape. Right there. Downdraft cape is a little bit on the weaker side, but you still got a decent low of evaporates. Yeah, this will be a favorable environment here, maybe for some big thunderstorms, but I think damage and wind threat may be a little bit lower on this sounding here. You also got a little bit of a flat hodograph as well, so the tornado threat might be a little bit lower. Not as impressive there on that sounding there. And then you can see a severe weather threat may continue into parts of the Ohio Valley on Saturday. Even some decent numbers back across parts of Nebraska. For curiosity, we'll take a look at that. And there's a cap there in place. So yeah, pretty active pattern ahead of us here. And let's talk about the sign in here. And I consider what the sign in here, if you got like a negative, maybe like negative 43, that ain't too bad. That's a little bit weak. But if you get into the hundreds, that's when storms may actually have a hard time developing. And check out these sign-in numbers out here. And you can see how it starts to get weak in that spot there. But check out all these other areas here later on. And then it starts to pump back in. I mean, check these numbers here. Not really favorable environment here for severe weather with sign-in numbers like this out here. I mean, you got negative 300, negative 400, negative 500. Storms are not going to be able to develop through that. And then you start to see that squall line there. And you can see there's some weaker spots here and there as well. But that's going to be something to watch here. And then you go to the next day here. There's like no sign in until those storms blow up. Which they do create some sign in their environment as well. And I don't think there's anything else to look in here. But yeah, the sign in is definitely going to be a big time factor for these severe weather setups. With these very high sign in numbers, I mean, the negative thousands, yeah, no storms are going to develop in that environment. And then when you move on to tomorrow, where you got places that has like no sign in, that's where your storms are going to develop. Areas that do not have, that does have quite a bit of sign in, your thunderstorms are not really going to develop there. But you can definitely see those big storms starting to develop here. Definitely taking advantage here with no sign in out ahead of it, and then it just dies out. Pretty much after that, the new storms try to form within that sign in as well. And pretty much all these other models is the same way. Here's the NAM for it. You can see here, looks like the prime time development here looks to be 0Z. So that's like in the late afternoon, early evening hours for Iowa. Thursday evening. That's probably where I gotta watch those storms develop. So I'll definitely say watch north central Iowa for thunderstorm development. That's where the models have some of the weakest sign in at, and that's definitely where your storms are going to be forming. And these storms will probably continue to the south and east here over the next several hours. Then you go to Friday, there's like nothing out there, so those storms have no problem developing out there. And then you move on to Saturday here, and then there's also nothing out there, so those storms will again have no problem developing in as well. But overall, for areas that live for tomorrow, parts of Iowa, southern Wisconsin, and northern Illinois, maybe into parts of northwestern Indiana, watch out for this MCS potential here. You have possibly a large cluster of thunderstorms that move quickly to the southeast. There is going to be quite a bit of support in the upper winds up in the atmosphere for this MCS to keep on going. So definitely got to watch for that. So really the primary threat is going to be damage to winds. Probably early on back across parts of Iowa. Probably has some hail mixed in. maybe some isolated tornadoes along this squall line. Storms are just cluster thunderstorms. Then the next day, areas that need to watch for severe weather will be across parts of Indiana, Ohio, maybe back into parts of Illinois, and into parts of northern West Virginia, Pennsylvania, into parts of New York State. Those will be areas to watch for severe weather tomorrow, which the SPC even mentioned a chance for an enhanced risk upgrade for Friday's threat or Saturday's threat. So definitely need to watch for that. Friday's threat on that day. Look at this time here, threw me off a little bit there. And then day after that, the severe weather chances get a little bit lower, but I'll probably watch for parts of the plains, probably north of the Ozarks, to parts of the Ohio Valley. May need to watch for possibly for some severe weather on Saturday, maybe into parts of Sunday as well, where the front may become a little bit stationary, but we definitely need to watch the northwest flow over the weekend here. Look like it could be a little bit active as well, but it's just something to watch for now. We'll have a better idea when we get closer towards the weekend here. All right, let's take a look into the Tropical System Impact Index, and this is till Monday morning of next week. So I've currently have a 2 out of 5 across parts of southeastern Louisiana, southeastern Mississippi, central and southwestern Alabama, into parts of north central Georgia. These are the areas that may have a chance to see 4 to 8 inches of rain. And there will also be some tropical depression winds, maybe even tropical storm winds across parts of Alabama, Louisiana, and southern Mississippi. And what's also interesting here, a couple models want this system to re-strengthen over land here. And then, like the Euro says, if that's correct, that'll definitely show a chance for tropical storm winds over land and even an increased tornado threat across parts of eastern North Carolina. So we may need to watch that pretty closely there. But it's just one model showing that, so we'll see if the other models will get on board to that. But really, the primary threat with this system here doesn't matter if it's going to be a tropical depression or a tropical storm, it's going to bring in a lot of moisture. And that's for the reason for the level 2. There is a chance this might get upgraded to level 3 because some models are indicating isolated areas might get over 8 inches of rain as well. So we definitely need to watch out for that flash flooding threat as well. And Invest 92L will be dealing with some wind shear as it does get closer to the coast, so it's going to have a hard time getting organized. So probably at max could be a tropical depression, but maybe even a tropical storm as well. I'm keeping the same percentages as yesterday. 90% chance for a tropical depression. That's what the National Hurricane Center percentages are for the next 5 days. Is a 90%. I believe it's a 40 or 50% in the next 48 hours. Man, I might need to double check that. Uh, but it does have a 50-50 shot of becoming a tropical storm, which is winds of 36 to 73 miles per hour. And I highly doubt this is going to become a hurricane or a major hurricane with this system. But here's the legend for the Tropical System Impact Index, and you can see here I only have a level 2, 1, and 2 here. So level 1 is 1 to 4 inches of rain, tropical depression winds, and 2% chance of tornadoes in SPC standards. And then a level 2 is 4 to 8 inches of rain, tropical storm winds, which not everybody's going to say tropical storm winds, but everybody might be able to have a chance to see 4 to 8 inches of rain and maybe even a 5% chance of tornadoes in SPC standards. And like I said, there's a chance for a level 3 because models have been hinting on a chance for some isolated 8 plus amounts. That is definitely not an 8. There we go. There's some places might be able to see 8 plus inches of rain, but they may not, they're highly not going to see hurricane force winds, so keep in mind of that. But 8 plus inches of rain can cause major problems as well, flooding wise. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that as well. But Anyways, guys, this is Arthur today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really do like my channel, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, if you could put it in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.